Okay, welcome everybody. Welcome North Carolina to our talk today on COVID-19 and internet gambling with Olu. And Olu, I hope I pronounced your name correctly. Is it
Yep.
Oyedele?
Yes. Good
Did
job.
I? No, right. A swing and a hit. So welcome, Olu. And we're excited to hear what you have to say today. And I want to thank everybody for being on today. And I do want to thank the North Carolina Department of Health and Human Services, Amanda Winters, our partner, and also the University of North Carolina's School of Social Work. Thank you for being our partner in delivering these great webinars and great trainings. And with that, I'm going to give you guys a quick training update for North Carolina, and then do a formal intro for Olu here. So just so you know, on our calendar, our next webinar is August 20th with Dr. Mark Potenza. And then September 1st, we're going to have Jody Bechtold speaking on ethics. Our SureBet series, which I'll be conducting this workshop, starts and I just saw this in a week and a half, starting August 17th, SureBet 1, August 17th, 19th, 24th, and 26th, I believe we're going to be doing SureBet 1, the first kickoff, and then we're actually going to be following with, I believe, another installment of SureBet 1 in September. And the same thing with SureBet 2. So we're going to go SureBet 1, 2 installments, and then SureBet 2, which is kind of I don't want to call it basic, but it's kind of like problem gambling 101. So look to the Behavioral Health Springboard website, sponsored by the University of North Carolina School of Social Work, to register. Okay, guys. So we'd love to have you, and please get registered for any of our webinars or our SureBet series. Also, I do want to say SureBet 3, we're actually in the middle of putting this together. I've got like 4 or 5 subject matter experts working with me, and we're going to roll this out first week of December, and it's over financial counseling and problem gambling. So I've got a few names involved: Dr. Lori Rugel, Jody Bechtold, Mark Lefkowitz, Jody Neely here out of Massachusetts. So really excited about putting that together. And again, that's coming in, gosh, December is not too far away. It's going to be September before we know it. So we're looking forward to presenting all those trainings for you. Okay, so for today, to get your CEU, you have to be registered through the website, the Behavioral Health Springboard website, to be on the Zoom call. If you're listening in on the phone, please hang on and listen to what Olu's got to say. I'm sure she's got a great presentation. We're all looking forward to it. But in order to get your CEU, you must be registered in the Zoom platform through the Behavioral Health Springboard website. Okay, so without further ado, Olu is a public health researcher with an interest in understanding the public health implications of gambling, and especially its effects on youth. Her research interests also focus on improving the health and status of Africans and African-born immigrants. In her spare time, Olu loves to write and is passionate about sharing healthy insights with easily digestible ways for all of us to understand. You can find a lot of her work on Medium or LinkedIn. And this was my first time meeting you, Olu. Great to meet you face to face. And again, we're excited to have you speaking today. So the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Robbie. I'm so
Sure.
excited to be here. I'm very grateful for the opportunity. So thank you to all the amazing partners who put this together. Like he said, my name is Olu Oyedele, the short form of a very long name. But happy to be here today to talk to you about something that I started doing my work at the Council on Compulsive Gambling of New Jersey. I am now not with the council, but I still enjoy and get to do a lot of this work around gambling, especially around what are the effects that COVID-19 has introduced to this space, whether it's internet gambling or it's going to be land-based gambling. And so today we'll just talk about some of the impact and strategies. I don't know what I did, Allison. I just see your comment about how my face is appearing. Apologies. I think it's the screen I used for the presentation. So let's see how it goes moving forward. Let's see. Okay, yeah, I think it's just the way the Zoom is set up. I hope that's okay. But anyways, can you all see my screen perfectly? And you can just let me know through the chat.
Yeah, I can see it, Olu. It looks like I'm just seeing, I see you kind of, um, I'm looking at your PowerPoint. It looks like, can everybody see her PowerPoint? I can see it on my screen, but I see you in a couple of screens too. Yes, they can. You're good.
Okay,
You're good.
okay, yeah.
Okay,
I
go
think there's a
ahead.
setting I chose for the bottom.
It's all right.
For
Roll.
the,
Yeah,
yeah.
you're fine.
Okay, great. Okay, all right. Well, okay, all right. Today's objective, and yes, I did see someone ask that question already about getting the PowerPoint. Yes, it is available. I have all the references linked and or in the notes section as well. So you would have access to that. And if you have any questions or you don't see any of the sources I said, you can always reach out to me. All right. Today's objective is what are the lasting impacts that COVID-19 has had and will continue to have on those who participate in online gambling? What is the impact of online gambling on the health of individuals and the larger community? What online strategies to reduce harm are available? Okay, I see the same thing about my head. So let me pause real quick and share the screen again. Maybe that's what's happening. So just give me a second. I did PowerPoint as virtual background. I think maybe that's what I did wrong. So give me a second. Let me just fix it so everybody can see what's happening here, okay?
Yeah. And no worries, Olu. I mean, it looks like we can all see it, but if you want to, I think we just see it.
Yeah, no worries at all. Just so everybody is comfortable. And so
Perfect.
I will do it in 1 second. Okay, so basic. All right, let's see if this is a better way. So this is what you're seeing now. So do you see this now?
Yeah, there you go.
Okay, all right.
Cool.
I suppose this will be better. I may not be able to see all your chats, but I think this should be better. All right. And so I was just talking about the objective, and lastly, the objective, the last objective for me is what is the public health approach to addressing gambling related harm? And so, the definition of internet gambling or online gambling, and you will see that I use that almost kind of interchangeably because it really is kind of the same thing. It is the same thing, but different people kind of add the different things, which is the ability to get internet, right? That's the actual definition, that the fact that you have maybe Wi-Fi or you have some kind of connection, as opposed to the fact that maybe you can go offline even though you're still using a mobile device. But really, internet gambling refers to the range of wagering and gaming activities offered through internet-enabled devices, including computers, mobile devices, tablets, digital television, all of that. There are some that you can access technically through a mobile device, but without internet, but it is very, very rare, actually very, very rare. So at least as far as, the ICDC is concerned, this is the definition. And so even if I use it interchangeably, please know that I'm referencing the same thing. But as far as internet gambling goes, it is considered to have the highest addictive potential. And that is why we are concerned about it, especially in light of what happened with COVID-19, right? Because with COVID-19, what happened was we no longer had, for the most part, for most states, and I want to say pretty much most of the world, we no longer had access to land-based games. And so now people were forced to either start as a new way to, diversify what they were already doing, or just even for people who maybe just needed a way to get some kind of action beyond work, beyond sitting down at home. And since we already know that it has the highest addictive potential, then this was worrisome to us and most everybody that is concerned with anything that has to do with gambling. Because what we have seen is that online gamblers have higher rates of gambling addiction compared to traditional gamblers. And so by traditional gamblers, we mean those who go to the casinos or, play the lottery, land-based games, basically. But why are people so interested in online or internet gambling? One, availability. There's the ease of betting, and then there's ability for large wagers. And so where there might be some restrictions in land-based games, right, where maybe they start to want to help control the amount spent by giving them a limit or things like that. A lot of those are not already instituted in online games, internet games. Those are not yet in place. And so for a lot of people, this is the best way. There's also, like I said, the ease of betting. It is quick, it is fast. You know, you already have your account already put in there, and so everything is kind of automatic. Just think about when you want to put an online order for your Starbucks drink, right? You can easily go on there nowadays and just press the order from the last place, the last location, and it's that easy. It takes 2 seconds. That is the same thing that people are enjoying with internet gaming. There's accessibility, it's continuous. You can do it round the clock, 24 hours, maybe where you don't have access to the slot machines anymore because you have to go get some rest, right? You can take a nap, come back to this, and get it on your phone. The greater variety of games. There's immediacy of reinforcement, right? So think about how we talk about what it is, the effect of the slot machine, where they're able to get that same effect because there's a little bit of reinforcement every time they win. It can take an hour, it can take 2 hours, but at least they're seeing that win almost certainly immediately. And so that is very encouraging for a lot of people, especially people who have problems with gambling. There's also the speed and frequency of gambling. Again, all of this is related, but think about the fact that we have AI technology, right? That encourages or that helps make the process, the user experience for this person smooth and fast and quick and easy to use. And we have to realize like the effect of artificial intelligence in helping us relate with technology. So easy, so convenient. You almost feel like this is your personal relationship with your device. If you think about how a lot of us are already addicted to our phone through TikTok, think about social media, how we're addicted to our phone, the AI that encourages us to use this, and we feel left out if we're not using our devices immediately. That is just the same thing that you can expect for someone who is gambling on their phones. But I think the biggest thing for a lot of people is the anonymity, right? There's the ability to play for uninterrupted periods. There's the reduced stigma, right? Nobody's telling you where you're going. Nobody is aware even that you're doing it, right? You could hide, you could be at home, you could be on the bed with your wife or your husband. You could be, anywhere in the world and not know, and people not know that you're doing this. So you don't have to deal with the stigma of anybody saying, oh, you're always going to the casinos or you're always going to get a ticket. Everything can now be done online, and that reduces the stigma. The increased feelings of comfort, less inhibiting, right? There's a greater sense of perceived control, right? There's that sense that you can maybe define how much you can spend, define the time that you can spend. This is not always true, but there's always that greater sense of perceived control that you have the power, and that the casinos are not taking advantage of you. That's another thing that a lot of people think, that maybe the casinos are not taking advantage of them in that moment or things like that, which again, perceived control. And then, like I said, it reduces social barriers to engaging in gambling. Think about someone who already has maybe social anxiety, or, they're depressed or anything like that. And now they don't have to deal with individuals. They don't have to deal with anyone asking them questions, or even the anxiety around, oh, I want to change, I want that sit, right? Like, they're not worried that somebody wants to take the seat that they're on the slot machine, right? And so that, again, reduces social barriers for a lot of people. And then, like I said, the AI technology, the realistic online experience with live betting. Another thing that one can, or we should start to consider now, is what's happening with cryptocurrency, right? With cryptocurrency now, it's global. So not only are you able to do this, locally, you can do this globally. And, the way through which you're doing this using cryptocurrency can almost make you certainly feel like you're not even spending so much money, when it really is that you are. And so for a lot of people, this is our concern around internet gambling. But then we start to look at the profile of who we will consider people that are internet gamblers, people who are typically internet gamblers. And then the question is, did this change or not with COVID-19? And so internet gamblers are typically male. They're typically young, ages 18 to 30, typically single. They're more likely to be educated and employed. Again, if you notice the asterisks there for two things. Did this change with COVID-19, and how much data do we have on this? So even prior to COVID-19, I would say, especially in the United States, we see a lot of our data, and a lot of everything I'm presenting today is actually not from the United States. A lot of the data is collected in Canada and in Europe. So I think, that's our challenge in the US, that we need to do a lot more with actual studies and collecting data to keep up with getting this information. But again, just so you know, the asterisks here is basically saying, did this change with COVID-19? And do we have, even as of now, do we have enough information around whether these are true? But this is what we do have. This is what we have seen in the studies, that they're more likely to be educated and employed. They're frequent gamblers, and they engage in a greater number of gambling activities, including land-based games. So people who are internet gamblers are frequent gamblers, so they gamble all the time, and they're more likely to also participate in land-based games. They are in higher debt. They have a lower prevalence of tobacco, alcohol, and substance use. Again, note the asterisks. Engage in co-occurring risky behaviors. They report more health, psychological, and problem gambling. And they're less likely to recognize their problems or seek treatment. So now, what is the impact so far with what we know with COVID-19 on internet gambling? What we have seen across the board is that there's an increase in internet gambling activities, right? Of course, there was the transition from land gambling to internet gambling. That's obvious, right? But then there was there was a transition from sports betting to internet gambling when there was the limited sports activity. Now, the thing that is important to note is that sports betting is actually one of the types of gambling known to increase the risk of problem gambling. And according to some studies, represents the second most common gambling type reported by treatment-seeking gambling disorder patients. So now, if we're saying that with internet gambling, there's that transition from sports betting to internet gambling, we have the understanding that a lot of people who are sports bettors already are more likely to be problem gamblers. And so now they're switching, which is going to mean that their increase in their gambling activities, so that they can get the same high, they can get the same level of activity, will be higher, right? So I say here, increased availability to global internet gambling using virtual currencies. I already mentioned that, right? However, some countries like Sweden and other European nations saw a decrease in gambling activities, and I'll discuss why that happened. And now, in one study, and I believe this was one of the studies done in Canada, 1/3 of the people who were studied tried internet gambling for the very first time during COVID-19. That's a significant amount of people, 1/3 for the first time. So these were people who had never gambled online before. And then 54% of respondents said they played online during the containment. 77% were exclusively offline gamblers prior to the pandemic. So prior to the pandemic, these were people who were not gambling on the internet, right? And so that is how, again, we start to see the effect of what happened with COVID-19, right? And then according to another study, there's a direct correlation between individuals losing their employment or having work hours reduced and greater odds of high-risk gambling status. So remember what I had mentioned about the profile of gamblers, right? Now we're saying that there is a direct correlation between individuals losing their employment or having work hours reduced and greater odds of high-risk gambling status, and that is internet gambling, right? And then there was also the fact that pre-financial woes, so pre-financial, unemployment or lack, also indicated likelihood to gamble for those who did participate. We do also see that increased activity among younger age groups and among men. And according to this study, up to 6-fold in regular gamblers. And then the other thing that we do see in some studies actually were that women also were gambling at high rates, maybe not as high as men, but now they were, again, think about the 1/3 who were trying internet gambling for the first time. They were now participating in internet gambling. The other thing that we should note was that this is not just an effect to people who were in fact in just the gamblers. There was an increase in economic prosperity for online market operators. Okay, I see a question here. 1/3 who tried gambling for first time, what country? I did say that I believe it was Canada, but the study, when you get the PowerPoint, the study is linked right here. But I do believe it was Canada. And I will tell you this, in our study in New Jersey, we almost saw the same thing. When we did a very small study in New Jersey, we did see pretty much the same thing where there were people who, and I want to say 1/3, but I'm not sure, who tried internet gambling for the first time. A lot of people actually did, again, just think about it. During the pandemic, they had nothing to do. Let's not even say they had nothing to do. They just needed another thing to engage their minds, and we saw that. But yes, I wanted to mention that again. Think about the increase in economic prosperity for online market operators. So we talked a lot about what's happening for those who gamble and those who have problems with gambling, but it was a big market for a lot of people, a lot of corporations, organizations. In fact, maybe for some, the best that they had ever seen. I mean, people were buying companies. I heard one of the organizations, went on the stock market. So it's definitely something to then see if this is going to continue, if this trend is going to continue post COVID-19. And then I did want to say something, and I'm sorry, I'm reading it from my notes, but it does say that data from gambling companies operating in the UK indicate that those products with a faster game cycle, such as slot machines, have seen an increase in the number of active players. The number of bets recorded for virtual sports and online poker was also up compared to 2019, and so was the number of gambling sessions per hour. So not only are people, again, just transitioning to using it, using this mode of gambling, right? They are doing it more. The sessions are more than ever before. And the number of bets, even for virtual sports, right? There was no sporting activities for a while there, was also increased. Now, the biggest thing for me anyways, which I think is the thing that impacts internet gambling the most, as well as affects the youth the most, is increased advertisement. And I don't know if anybody can tell me if they recall anytime they saw, I keep doing this, I'm sorry. Anytime they recall internet, an advertisement that happened, that they saw with betting involved. I'm going to look through the chat. If anybody can recall off the top of their head, just how many they saw, if they saw. Okay, Valerie says because it has proven so profitable, it will continue in the future. Okay, but can anybody recall off the top of their head anything around advertisement around gambling? Anybody? There's one that comes to mind with a popular artist. He's a popular actor versus music singer. I see yes from Alistair. Anybody else? Does Jamie Foxx, did anybody see the one with Jamie Foxx? Yes, no? Okay, I don't see any responses. Can you guys hear me? Okay, Fiora says no. Okay, all right, no problem. Let's move along because there's no time. But for me, it was very, very obvious. I saw so much of it. I was shocked as to the way that they seem to, be okay with gambling so much. And I wanted to show this video to just show how much impact advertising gets. So if you can see this already, just look at the back of where the player is. There is so much branding going on there, right? But then I'm going to play this and I hope everybody will be able to hear. And let's see.
First, it was Portuguese star Cristiano Ronaldo at a news conference during the Euro 2020 Soccer Championships. He removed and appeared to urge
Yeah, Lou, I don't know. Yeah, we can't hear there. I don't think there's any audio for some
Oh, you
reason.
can't?
Oh, you know what?
Oh my God.
If you
Yeah.
want to, when you share screen, if you want, you
Yes.
can do this. You can go out and then you have to check those two boxes on the lower left before you
Okay.
share screen. So you can go, if you want the audio, you can stop share, then share again, but there's two boxes on the lower left that you can click to get the audio working. Does that make
You know
sense?
what? No, yeah, no worries.
Okay.
I'll just paraphrase. But
Okay.
I really did want you guys to be able to see, first of all, what was happening behind the scenes. And then I'll explain what's going on. Okay, so basically, this is a soccer game, Euro 2020, that was happening in 2021. And the stars are moving the Coke bottles and encouraging either to drink water, and the one guy had removed the Heineken bottle, just encouraging people to drink other things. This caused a dip in market shares, and it points me to let you see what the impact of advertising can really do. First of all, again, just look at all the brands behind these folks, right? So pointing it to you to say, use me, we're good. This is, just branding. They're not, doing anything that they're not supposed to do. However, what we notice with gambling is the same thing, in that the most that you are seeing gambling advertising is not actually in the realm of gambling, right? This is soccer. Soccer has nothing to do with Coke, right? You might expect to see a football there. You might expect to see Nike, right? Like, because it's an actual sports, sports organization or sports, company, right? You might expect to see jerseys. You might expect to see something related to sports. Nothing you see here is related to sports. And that's exactly what happens with gambling. most of the environments in which participants report seeing or hearing any gambling advertisements is typically not gambling related. So every time I saw the ad I'm mentioning with Jamie Foxx, I was watching a movie, I was watching a TV show, and then it will come up and it would say, sports betting is so quick and easy, join now, there's $5 off, there's $100 off, or whatever the promotion was at the time, right? So it's not even doing gambling related activities. And studies have already shown us that people who have problems with gambling are disproportionately affected by this gambling marketing, right? So already think about it now with your phone, with your TV, with your computers and all of that. What is happening for a lot of individuals is they could be on Facebook, and then they will see they'll see a gambling advertisement. They could be on Instagram, they could be on TikTok, they could be on something so unrelated to gambling that then they see this gambling advertisement, and it greatly affects their ability to say, for example, stop gambling, and or it introduces them to this world of gambling, right? And think about what gambling does. It typically, the advertising typically depicts gambling as glamorous, as fun, as the best place to be. And so what is happening is that it, of course, encourages the average, young person especially, to then join and want to gamble. The other big thing that you'll see then is also that there's the bonus offering for sports betting, there's the bonus offering for all these online things, which particularly encourages and has been shown to have an increase in problem in activities among problem gamblers. So while advertisement has not been shown to maybe cause the commencing of gambling, at least this was prior to COVID-19, right? There was no studies to show that there was a direct correlation between an advertisement and starting gambling. I expect that data will show that changed with COVID-19. I expect that to be the case because we're saying now, for example, 1/3 of people tried internet gambling for the first time, right? And then we're showing that in the one study, 77% of those participants were never internet gamblers. They were online, they were land-based gamblers, but now they then did the transition to internet gambling. So I'm expecting that if we start to measure the gambling behaviors and we start to measure why they made those transitions, we will see that advertisement is a major reason. And this is because of things like this. And again, think about what we're saying about the influence of the product. So Cristiano Ronaldo or any of these players, just by moving he literally just moved the bottle away and said, drink water. He was able to show a dip. There was a dip in what's it called? There was a dip in the market for Coca-Cola just because he moved the bottle. That is impressive enough as it is, and shows the impact of gambling, of advertising in gambling. All right, are we together? Are we all together?
I think so.
Yes. Okay. All right.
I see some people commenting, and thank you for bringing that up, Olu. It has such a huge impact, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
Okay. All right. Okay. So, this is one of the studies. Again, I believe it is the study in Canada. Please forgive me. I'll tell you right now. No, this was done in Australia. Okay, and so you can see, and then I was able to just copy this for lack of a better term, because this did a good job of visualizing it, and I think we'll be able to see what happened before COVID-19 and during COVID-19 for these participants. Again, if this study is recreated in the US, and it may be, and maybe it's just not yet out for public discourse, I'm sure we're going to start to see the same things. But we see that before COVID-19, for a lot of people, horse racing, was very common. So this is about 57%. There was a slight increase during COVID-19. There's a slight increase in greyhound racing. I've never heard of that. A slight increase in harness racing. And you see the dip right there for sports betting. Again, that was just because of that initial inability to get into sports activities, or there were no sports activities at the time. But we see an increase with esports, the same for about virtual sports, no poker machines, right? And I suppose there were no accessibility to that. Where the others found poker machines, I'm not sure. The casino, of course, as we will expect. Where they even found casino, I'm not even sure, since it was closed in most places. But poker, and I believe this was online, you also see a dip. Oh, no, sorry, this was not online. You also see a dip. Keno, lottery, right? People couldn't get access to all of these things. You see a slight dip as far as the product use, right? And so what we need to note is that what was available to people in this place, and we can see that a lot of people, because they didn't have access to it, there was a dip, but people were still doing things, right? There's still people sports betting, and there were no sports for a couple of months there, right? There's still people betting on horse racing and things like that. So how we can see from this that they still had a way to do this. People were betting on current affairs, TV shows, other novelty events. People just needed to be able to bet, and they found a way. Okay, and then in the next one, okay. In this next slide, we see what's the overall gambling frequency before and during COVID-19, right? So you see that before COVID-19, most people were gambling 2 to 3 times a week. During COVID-19, most people were gambling 4 times a week, right? And studies have shown that post-lockdown, studies have found that 48% of individuals have maintained or increased gambling activities, right? And so that's something important to really think about, that it's not so much as what they're playing, it's that they found more time to play during COVID-19. 4 times a week is a lot. And that's where we see majority of people fell into, right? Between 2 to 3 times a week, or 4 times a week for those who gambled during COVID-19. And like I said, we're starting to see that post-lockdown, studies have found that 48% of individuals maintained or increased gambling activities. Okay, all right. I'm sorry, my thing just seems to be very slow. Okay, there we are. Now, the average proportion of gambling via different methods. Again, this one is very obvious, right? But online is now the majority, right? 78% of individuals are now using online methods. Again, one person said casino. I'm not sure how they got into the casino, 1%, I should say. 8.1 venue, club, or pub. So again, think about the fact that maybe the restrictions were different, and so they were able to enter, and people found other ways, other venues, so maybe at home, with friends, that kind of thing. So we see here that there is a lot of people who found ways to gamble, regardless, during COVID-19. And then if you notice, that was figure 4, this is figure 3, and I wanted to show how much was spent before and during COVID-19, because I think this is a very powerful figure, right? So remember I told you that we did see in some studies, e.g. this study, that women were, some age group of women were gambling a little bit more than normal, or at least before COVID-19, right? But we also see here, which I think for me is more significant, the amount spent. So those younger individuals, 18 to 34, were on average spending a lot more. You see that both in males and females. They were spending a lot more than any other age group. Seems like every other age group kind of figured that, you know what, we need to start to save some money. And this was not the case across those who were 18 to 34, both males and females. In general, in this study, males generally spent more, but I think the importance here is in this age group difference. And so that just reminds me that, you know, we need to be very cognizant of our younger age groups in understanding, you know, what it is that they're involved in, how they're getting involved in it, what is their staying power and things like that. And in this study, what they did ask why a lot of people were gambling or not gambling, sorry. And so for a lot of them, those who said they did not gamble as much or as frequent, they said that, you know, one, it was a financial reason. For others, it was followed by not wanting to gamble around family. For others, it was thinking that they were gambling too much. And for others, it was someone suggested that they were that they reduced their gambling. But it seems to us, or at least to me, in this study, then that what is happening is that that message is not passed across to youth. I don't know if it's because youth are not generally, and I say youth being 18 to 34, they're not monitored as much. They're more adventurous. They're more, you know, they're more willing to, you know, take on risky behaviors. I'm not really sure, but clearly there's something to be said for what is happening amongst those who are 18 to 34. And that, I think, is something important for us to know. All right, I think I'm running around, I'm running behind time, so I'm gonna try and quickly move on. Okay, and so what is the health impact of COVID-19 on gambling and gambling disorders? So now we've seen the data, we've seen that there's increase in behavior, in activities, but how does this impact their health? And the one thing that was very obvious in a lot of the studies that I saw was that there was increased alcohol consumption amongst those who were problem gamblers. So that is very, very problematic, at least for me, because already we know that, you know, problem gamblers already are more likely to be involved in what's it called? In risky behaviors. But what we were thinking was that they were less likely to use alcohol and drugs. At least some of the studies were saying before COVID-19. Now during COVID-19, among those who were problem gamblers who were again all shifted to internet gambling, there was now the increased alcohol consumption, right? There was increased problem gambling severity amongst this population, right? And those reporting sports betting, even during a period with decreased sports betting occasions, proved to have markedly higher gambling problems. And this is, again, you know, I mentioned it initially that those who are sport gamblers, we are saying that they're the second most likely to have a problem with gambling, right? Think about the pace. It's faster, it's quicker. You know, you can almost bet instantaneously on every little step of the game, every throw, everything of the game. And so it increases the ability to become addicted. And then we start to see that these individuals have higher gambling problems. But now there's no sporting activity, and somehow they found whatever sporting events, right? People were betting on things that were not sport, for lack of a better term. And that shows then that these individuals have a higher gambling problem. However, we did see that people who bet on horses, so online horse bettors, had significantly less gambling problems if they reported past 30-day use. So it might be that people who were horse bettors online just wanted the activity, but you know, they were not. They were less likely to be problem gamblers than those who reported sports betting. There was also the increased psychological distress. Again, think about the association from some of these studies that was talking about prior financial problems, as well as less work, reduced work, right? So that stress coupled with already everything that was going on with COVID-19, being locked up at home, you know, not able to see friends and family, there's obviously the increased psychological distress. And then increased levels of depression, anxiety, and stress among problem gamblers. This is, again, might seem very obvious, but we need more studies. There's just a lot to be studied in this area to, again, just understand really the impact, what it will do again in the future. I'm very curious about the correlates between COVID-19, gambling, and sleep deprivation, because with internet gambling, you're doing it 24/7, around the clock or whatever, but how does that affect their sleep? And think about the fact that sleep deprivation is linked to so many things: cancer, high blood pressure, and so many things. I'm very curious about that. I'm very curious about the correlates between COVID-19, gambling, and domestic violence, as well as suicide, right? We've not seen any studies, or at least I haven't seen any studies on that thus far. I'm also very curious about those who gamble and if they got COVID-19, right? We did see in some of the studies that people found other ways to gamble. A few people said casinos, right? And a few people said pubs. So say, for example, the casinos, the person goes to another country to go gamble because the US did not have it, right? And so I'm curious to know if there's any association between that and whether or not they got COVID-19. And we've seen with alcohol, but we haven't seen with smoking habits. And so I'm just interested in that, especially drugs as well, with that, smoking and smoking as well. So these are things I'm curious about. But the thing that, I'm especially wanting us to get from this is that as a nation, and maybe we can start to encourage this in our work, post-pandemic, we must seek to integrate gambling problems with substance use organizations or efforts, right? And as well as medical efforts going on for regular things. So for example, we are, you're treating this individual for sleep deprivation, or you're treating this individual for hypertension, or for anything else. We need to start to assess where gambling may have played an effect with this individual. And it has to be part of our regular treatment efforts, whether it's substance use treatment efforts or just regular medical efforts. I think that's what we need to do as a country to be able to help people. Because I don't know if you remember, but we mentioned that so far, our understanding of those who have internet, who use internet gambling predominantly, especially, they're less likely to seek treatment, right? Because they might not recognize it on time. Their family members might not recognize it on time. It can take a longer latent period for them to recognize that they have a gambling problem than the individual who's more likely to go to the casino or buy a lottery ticket or go to a place, right? And so, all right, let's see. All right, so what are the online strategies to reduce harm? We know some of them, right? We talked about self-exclusion, but is there online self-exclusions, right? Age verification checks, right? Are we making sure that artificial intelligence is being intelligent in that age verification check, right? Timeout, like, is there on-screen clocks that says you've been on this for 24 hours, right? That kind of thing. Is there changing the parameters of rewards or loyalty points that discourage constant use, right? So I always say I'm addicted to coffee, but think about it with Starbucks. The more you buy, the more rewards. And I assume it's the same thing with gambling. And so that's part of the problem, that the more you do, the more you get, or the more likely you're going to get a bigger price. If we can maybe change some of those loyalty points, which of course does not benefit these online game operators, but it is a hopefully their own part of their own efforts to reduce gambling behaviors, right? But I think the best, maybe some of the best ones will be limit setting. I want to go back to the first one, which is, limiting their time and it being done from the online operator's perspective, limiting their time daily, whether it's daily, hourly, or weekly, because the online operator actually has more control than the individual, especially one who's starting to have problems with gambling. They might not agree to this, but again, this is where we need to start to advocate better for for people who have problem gambling. Again, the same thing with money, right? Like, are there loss limits? Are there deposit limits? Restricting access to money, especially restricting access to cryptocurrency, as we're saying, that gives access globally or gives access in ways that, people who maybe don't have certain, they don't have the cash, they don't have the funds, can access this and start to use this. We need to really be careful with that. Some technical or technological things that may happen then is, can we do things like brief intervention or brief bio, like the brief biosocial gambling screening question or messaging on responsible gambling come up as pop-ups on these online platforms? Can we restrict advertising on this on online platforms? And this again will be not just in gambling platforms, but in all platforms, right? All online platforms, right? Can we give personalized feedback on individual gambling behavior to this individual? So, I don't know if you guys know, I mean, most of you will, if you have an Apple, even Android does this, I believe, where you can almost set a limit on your phone use or your a device use, and then they send you a weekly report to tell you you've used you spent however many hours on this device this week. Your device usage reduced by 40-something% this week. If we can start to maybe incorporate things like that, maybe that can be helpful, right? And then now, and I think COVID-19 already brought this one out, which is the online therapy availability, because that's where we're going to be able to get these people. And so again, is that something that together with online operators we can say, hey, this person, based off of their the money spent, the time spent, all of that, we suggest to them that there's this online therapist available to them who can speak to them immediately, that kind of thing. So those are some of the things that we can do. But as a nation, there are many things we can do. And I'm going to read from my notes. I also have this in the notes section as well, a lot of the things that other countries did. So the government of Spain banned most gambling advertising on television, only allowing advertisements to run between 1 a.m. and 5 a.m. Sweden's government implemented gambling limits for people who use online casino sites, describing the pandemic as a dangerous cocktail of different conditions that could increase the risk of problem gambling and gambling addiction. France is discouraging the use of incentives to attract new players and calling for continued vigilance in the detection of gambling problems. Latvia employed more stringent safety measures where they banned all online gambling from March 22nd of 2020 until the lifting of containment measures, right? And so these are things other countries are doing. So, sometimes we talk like, we don't see, we can't do something, like the government can't do something, but there are things we can do. There are things that the government has done for substance, use or substance abuse, and we should do the same thing, for gambling. We need to advocate for that in our limited spaces, and hopefully we start to maybe engage our politicians a lot more around these things. And another thing that happened was, and I'm going to link it to this next slide here, which is what is the public health approach to addressing gambling related harm. I'm not going to go through all of this, but again, you can see, there's pricing and taxation regulation. These are just, again, suggestions, but things that we need to incorporate because we're seeing other nations do it. So for example, the Gambling Commission of Great Britain awarded 9 million to a prevention and aid organization in order to support their mission during the pandemic, right? Some regulators imposed limits on gambling transactions. The Belgium Gambling Commission imposed a weekly limit of about 500 euros per customer on all authorized and locally hosted online gambling sites. The Finnish state monopoly lowered the cap on monthly losses, right, and daily losses on all online gambling except poker. A measure that remained, what's it called, in effect until September of 2020. So these organizations, these countries are doing their part in using public health approach and using a public health approach to address gambling related harm. And here's the thing, we understand that maybe some of these things affect the gambling operators, right? We're a consumer-based nation. We are what's the word? I forget the word. We drive on and we want to be a nation that everybody can come and succeed, and there's no monopolization on industry, so anybody can come and win, and that's all great. But there are potential, and as we can see, very, very destructive harms to people, and we have to start to see gambling as a public health problem. It is not an individual problem. It is not a problem that affects just a few people. Even if it's a problem that affects 1% of the population as individuals, it does have ripple effects because it affects their family members as well, and their friends and their businesses, right? And so we really need to start to see this as a public health approach. And so in my last slide here, we see, okay, what is a public health policy framework for action? And we see here that we have goals, right? We want to denormalize, we want to prevent, we want to protect, we want to reduce harm. And what is the strategies to do that? There's health education, there's health communication, there's community development, there's policy development, and then there's organizational development. And in that framework, everybody's involved. There's the intra and the interpersonal level, there's the community level, there's the policy level, and then there's the institutional level. And what are the health promotion action areas? Develop personal skills. So we see that a lot with all the trainings that we're already doing, with starting from middle school, right? It's starting to teach about gambling, teach about, making good decisions and things like that. Strengthen the community capacity, right? If everybody's doing well, maybe people don't need gambling as much for the need to, what's the word? Make money, right? So because it's supposed to be a fun game, and so we don't want that necessarily to change, but we do want it not to be people's almost source of, this will change my life. And that happens even by strengthening our community capacity, creating supportive environments. So when people even immediately start showing any signs, we're able to catch them, hopefully at the start, right? But we have to also build healthy public policy. It's just what we have to do. I will continue to say the work that we are seeing coming out of Canada and Europe, America needs to get there. The US needs to get there, and they're challenging us, and I hope we are challenged to join in that fight. And lastly, I already mentioned this, in reorienting health services, which is the idea that, again, starting even from medical intervention, starting the same way we ask about drug and alcohol use, even with teenagers, right? When they're filling a regular questionnaire, can we add things around gambling so we can hopefully maybe start to deal with this kind of in one streamlined effort to make the individual whole, and hopefully make the family and community whole as well. That was a lot, but I hope you guys got everything. Are there any questions?
Great job, Olu. We've gone right up to the hour. So do you guys have any?
I'm so sorry.
No, it's okay. That was great information, and agreed with that last point you made with, yeah, can we piggyback some of this behavioral addiction onto the substance addiction piece with screening and some other things? And great talk. Does anybody have any parting questions? Yes, the slides are available, guys, on the website, the Behavioral Health Springboard website, and this has been recorded as well. So yeah, you can get it there. But do you have any questions while we have Olu for, if it's okay, Olu, for just a couple of minutes here? We've had some great comments in the chats.
Yes, thank you, Alistair. I see he or she, as a lawyer for a European gambling company, we do most of the listed activities with the exception of the middle square and the bottom right. Let me see. What's the middle square? I want to go back to that. What was the middle square? Okay. Brief intervention. Okay, yes. This is a suggestion by me that I really think might be helpful. And maybe we can use to like block the individual out if maybe they answer the questions, or at least recommend them to online therapy. Let me see.
Yeah, very good.
Okay, I think I don't see any questions, but please feel free to email me. You can provide my email if anybody has any questions, or like I said, needs any more information on the sources or things like that. I couldn't read all the topic. I wonder why there's less data or research available in the US on the topic. I think a lot of it is funding, right? A lot of it is policy, right? Like I said, I used to work at the New Jersey Council on Compulsive Gambling, and so I do know that funding was not, as great as we've seen in other areas, especially as this as this is so linked to mental health, it's kind of disconcerting that that's not the case. And it takes funding to do studies. It really does. Yeah. Okay.
Great stuff, Olu. Hey, I do have one observation I want to make that you were talking about. It's not so much about the online. I really like the piece that you played on the advertising, and it got me to thinking here in the US, right? And watching the Olympics. And it just started me thinking, you see, because I'm a big sports guy,
right?
I love sports. So you see the deals that are made with the NFL, which I love the NFL, and with the professional sports, and with the Olympics. And I learned something new, guys, on here from you and from you too, Olu, about the restrictions in Europe about advertising. Is that what happened with the Olympics? Because I've been watching the Olympics. I haven't seen much or any advertising on gambling sports sites, online gambling. Am I wrong or right to say that? Is it some restrictions you think internationally or otherwise that have been placed on advertising for these gambling spots?
I think so. I think that's my observation. So I don't know if other people have seen anything, but I agree. I think that's been part of it, right? Alistair, it's largely European,
European law.
It's largely European law, yeah. I think that's what it is, and so typically you would see, like, especially the US, right? They would put their flag and maybe they advertise their sponsor, right?
DraftKings, yeah.
Right. And I think that's been the case. So and again, advertising, it's really doing it's a lot. It's a lot. DraftKings, it's a lot. We want people to make money, but it maybe shouldn't be at the expense of some people. So, but again, that's my personal opinion. So,
Well, thank you again, Olu, and I hope we get to talk more in the future, and I hope we get to work together again. And this was so helpful. Great information from the advertising to the online piece as well, because I'm seeing that with my clients too. The accessibility, the anonymity, the speed, all those things make it just almost like the stash, the whiskey that they can put away under the couch.
Absolutely.
So, but listen, we're over. But thank you very much, Olu. And
thank you. It was my pleasure.
We'll
I really appreciate it. Yeah, thank you guys. Thank you, everyone. I see all the comments and I'm glad you guys enjoyed it. Again, feel free to reach out to me. Thank you so much.
Okay, great stuff. Everybody have a great rest of your week and weekend. Have a good day. Right. Thank you, Olu.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.